right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Fantasy Council. I know why you're here. We know why you're here. We all know why you're here. It's for top-notch fantasy football content. And no one brings it to you like we do. I promise. I'm here with my two co-hosts today, Chris Miles. How you doing?
Doing great.
Killing it
today.
Excellent. Good to hear. If you guys are doing good, I'm doing good, you know?
Yeah.
Coming at you after week 4 with some interesting buy low, sell highs. So, really quick, with all that being said, I'll pass you off to these smart gentlemen over here who are going to fill you in.
Yeah, just to start off before we go, I apologize, everyone. A little sick right now, going through it. So if you see me like
24, man,
probably have COVID or something going on. So if you see me like sniffling or having a little tissue or something, I apologize. But
sorry.
That being said,
not okay.
Thank you guys. Thank you. We're gonna hop into my first buy low, and that's gonna be Breece Hall of the New York Jets. Coming off the last 2 weeks, he had a 49% and 44% snap share compared to Dalvin Cook's 25 and 25. He's also averaging 6.6 yards a carry right now, and he's on pace for 892 rushing yards, and that's right now with the worst possible situation that's been going on. He clearly looks like the most explosive and best back in that backfield. I think anyone in Washington could agree. And he has had 2 breakaway runs this year. I think one of 83 yards in the first game and like 50 yards last week. And he's going into his 5th game back after injury, which we know is huge. He's just going to ramp up more and more as time goes on, get more and more explosive, which we love to see. And also that last Jets-Chiefs game was close. I mean, Zach Wilson finally showed a lot of confidence, stuff we were waiting to see. Hackett kind of changed the play calling. He got the ball out a little quicker versus like that heavy blitz scheme from Steve Spagnuolo of the Chiefs defense. But we love to see that. We love to see the Jets offense flowing, moving, actually gaining yards and first downs, because that just bodes well for Breece Hall and all Jets players in general. Breece is playing the Broncos D coming up this week, and they just allowed the Miami Dolphins to have 70 points in them 2 weeks ago. They allowed for the Bears to actually look somewhat decent versus them last week. They're 32nd against fantasy running backs, which is great. You could honestly go buy Breece now, have him probably blow up this week, and sell him for much more than you paid. Guys I'm buying him for are guys like Dameon Pierce, Raheem Mostert, Brian Robinson Jr. But yeah, I think Breece Hall really is going to break out in the near future. He could be a league winner on the road. He's extremely cheap right now. Such an explosive, elite college athlete, elite college producer. He was on pace to be a top 5 guy last year. Go get him now before it kind of explodes. It's my first buy low, Breece Hall.
Yeah, I like it. I actually really admire how you're just absolutely fighting through this illness to bring us some great fantasy picks right now. It's really inspiring. It's really inspiring. But anyway, yeah, Breece was one of my guys actually heading into the year. He's coming off the torn ACL, obviously, so his ADP was pretty low. He's going like mid-5th. You could maybe even get him early 6th sometimes. Like before Aaron Rodgers got hurt, I was all over that. I loved that ADP for him. I just back end of the season, I saw him as a league winner. And even without Aaron Rodgers, I mean, if Zach Wilson and that offense is going to do anything like they did on Sunday night against the Chiefs, I think Breece Hall could kind of dominate throughout the stretch. We know he's a good player, so if his ACL is holding up and the offense is scoring points, I think he'll do pretty well.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially as he starts to get more and more comfortable on that knee as the season progresses too. Like you guys mentioned, Zach Wilson actually looked like a competent quarterback against the Chiefs. I agree completely.
All right, with that all being said, I'll jump into my first buy low. It's another running back. It's Jerome Ford, actually, Cleveland Brown. He was a popular waiver wire ad a couple weeks ago. I don't want to dive too deep into the advanced statistics with this guy because he's only really been the starter for 2 games. A lot of stats within a 2-game stretch are very volatile and subject to a lot of change. But I like what I see from him on the field. He's fast. He's good for breakaway runs. And something that's been really interesting to me is his involvement in the passing game. I believe he caught 5 out of 6 targets last week from Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who actually overslept on Sunday and left my Cleveland Browns wide receivers in the lineup. Didn't know Deshaun Watson was out, so I lost the league because of that. But it's nice to see that at least Jerome Ford had a nice little day receiving with 5 catches. Obviously boosted his points. I like him as a runner. Obviously that offensive line it's a great offensive line, so they'll be able to make a lot of holes for him going forward. Yeah, they could add another running back. They already had a Kareem Hunt. They got another guy, Pierre Strong, there, who doesn't really get too much work, but it's kind of his backfield as of right now. I don't really see any free agents out there that they're going to add that's just going to completely diminish Jerome Ford's workload. I mean, he had a pretty slow game last week. I think he had like 8.9 points, something in that realm. But going forward, I really like Jerome Ford as just, a workhorse guy. And I never really knew about him that he was a pretty good receiver. I mean, he had a bad drop a couple weeks ago, but, besides that, pretty sure-handed. He gets upfield quick when he catches the ball. And I don't think he's too expensive right now to go acquire, as opposed to, especially after last week, he had that receiving touchdown, nice 24-point game. So yeah, I like to go grab Jerome Ford right now, shore up that RB2 spot for the rest of the year.
For sure. I think you can acquire him pretty cheaply, and you look at his last two matchups. I mean, he had the Titans run D, which is really tough, and then he played the Ravens without their starting quarterback, at which the Ravens defense is already a handful. And then you throw DTR into the mix, and it's even tougher. And then you also got to consider just game script wise, that Browns defense has looked insane so far this year. So I think there could be a lot of good game scripts going in his favor as well as far as running the ball.
It's a good point, the game script thing. I didn't actually think of that, to be honest.
No, definitely. I mean, the Browns defense has looked elite. They're going to probably continue to be elite. And like Miles was saying, coming off back-to-back tough games versus those Titans' best run D, and last week kind of shows you almost his floor versus a tough matchup versus the Ravens without their starting quarterback, and they could barely move the football, and he still put up 9.5 points. So that's really what your floor with Jerome Ford, which is honestly awesome. And for his price you can get right now with his target share, which is 17%, which is very unexpected, just as an overall snap share that he was having, he's a great buy low guy right now. You should definitely go get him.
For sure. I'm going to get into my buy low. It's Jaylen Waddle, Dolphins wide receiver. He's a guy that I think right now is playing at his absolute floor. I mean, and he hasn't looked great. He's only had he's played 3 games, 4 catches in each of those games. He's averaging 10.9 points per game, which for his absolute floor, 10.9 points per game, it's not going to kill you. Obviously not what you hoped for where you drafted him, but he's in one of the best offenses in the NFL. He's not always going to be consistent with Tyreek across from him, obviously, but he's one of the few receivers out there that truly has week-winning upside. I mean, we've seen it through his career so far. And he still averages, with his 4 catches per game, he still averages the 8th highest yards per catch in the NFL at 17.5. Which among the really elite receivers, taking out the deep threats and some of the big plays that guys like Marvin Mims have had, he's really the highest of the elite receivers in yards per catch. So I think he's a great buy low target right now.
Yeah, Chris, if you got anything to say, you can go first.
Yeah, I mean, Miles touched on pretty much all of it, but elite offense gonna put up crazy points like their 70 they had a few weeks ago. Jaylen Waddle is just playing his floor, and he's doing fine, whatever. Those touchdowns, his big plays are going to come. If he's having these bad games and giving you 10, it's been like that for the start. It's been 4 weeks. It's annoying. That's really just his floor. So when he has these explosive, these huge weeks, his value is going to spike. And he's a great buy low guy. Really playing on his floor.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think most fantasy managers kind of know who Jaylen Waddle is. But even with that being said, if you get him for 80, 85 cents on the dollar, I would still hit it all day. I mean, I could just feel one of those just Jaylen Waddle, just 45-point weeks coming up hot. He's just going to get his. I mean, Tyreek Hill is obviously the focal point of that offense, but Jaylen Waddle is just way too good of a wide receiver to just leave out of the game plan. And I think there's going to be plenty of games this season where Jaylen Waddle probably is the focal point of the offense. So, I mean, yeah, if you could get Jaylen Waddle for, 85 cents on the dollar right now, I think that's an absolute steal. He's going to win you weeks. You never know. He could have that 3-game stretch, week 14, 15, 16, the fantasy playoffs, where he could just absolutely dominate over a 3-game stretch, almost like no other wide receiver besides his teammate Tyreek Hill. I feel like those are the only really 2 guys that are just have the capability to just absolutely explode, put up 100+ points over a 3-week stretch. Jaylen Waddle can do that. We know he can do that. So he's a league-winning wide receiver, in my opinion. If you can get him for anything cheaper than what he should be worth right now, I agree. You got to buy him.
Yeah, just that week winning upside is massive. And I mean, if you have some inexperienced managers, some kind of guys you can take advantage of in your leagues that have Waddle, they're probably hitting the panic button. So definitely a guy can go after for much cheaper than he should be. But with that being said, I'm gonna go with my first sell high, and that's gonna be Justin Fields. Really just kind of not what we expected this year. He's being drafted as like the QB 5 or 6, I think, to start the season. All these thoughts of like a huge rushing upside, maybe like a Jalen Hurts like season from last year, and just it's really not been that this season at all. He's currently the QB 12, and before this last huge week versus a horrific Broncos D, he was much worse than that. He's only had one game above 15 points, which is this last week. And he only has 134 rushing yards through 4 games, which is like 34 yards a game or 33 something. And that's just like not what you expected. You expected his rushing upside to be massive. You expected these big rushing touchdowns to have more of a kind of a floor than he's had. We kind of expected him to also just develop better. Like he's not reading defenses. He's not really processing. And that was his big concern coming out of Ohio State. So that's just kind of concerning overall. I don't hate Fields. Like he's going to be an okay fringe, like low end QB1, high end QB2 range probably the rest of the year. But after that huge week he just had, I think now is going to be one of the best selling points you got in him for the rest of the year. Some guys could be like, oh, okay, like he finally broke out. I mean, if you can go get someone like A-Rich, which is unlikely, but from like a manager that really isn't paying too much attention or has like some kind of rookie bias, go do that. That'd be insane. But in general, like T-Law, Russ, Brock Purdy, maybe if you're lucky, Kirk. I wouldn't even hate Stroud. That's honestly a personal preference, but I just think now is the selling point for Justin Fields. So I'd sell on him right now.
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's kind of just more of like where we drafted Justin Fields at. We kind of need a lot more. Like, yeah, he had a nice week last week, but it's been brutal. Like the first 3 weeks have been terrible. I mean, honestly, a lot of people are probably losing weeks because of Justin Fields. Obviously, just played against absolutely porous Broncos defense. I mean, they cannot stop anyone. I'm telling you, I might be able to have a 30-point fantasy week at quarterback against the Broncos. Yeah, I don't mind selling high on Justin Fields right now. If you get Anthony Richardson, like, oh my God, please do that. But I mean, yeah. Also, I don't mind guys like Stroud. You know, just like the guys who are giving you a higher floor. Because yeah, every once in a while, Fields might play a bad defense or just have a magical, nice passing day, which I don't really think is something you could rely on him to do, like, very often at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, if you get out on Fields right now at a solid price, I think I'd agree I'd have to do it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a unique opportunity to get out, and I think you could get a lot of those guys you named, like A-Rich, for example. I think you could get him plus like maybe a flex type player just solely based off the fact that Fields was drafted. So I think people will hold on. They're like, okay, now we're seeing why we drafted Fields where we drafted him. Like, and he does have a good stretch of matchups coming up. You can throw that out there too. I'd still look to sell, but I think they have like the Raiders. Who else is it? Let me pull it up quick.
I mean, I will just say to add on though, if anyone in your league run, if you have Justin Fields in your team, go send an offer. I think straight up Fields for A-Rich. I think that could be a potential league winning move on your end.
Oh yeah.
I would
still do that.
I would have no problem
you
adding a piece on top of Justin Fields either.
Yeah, I agree. If you're adding
yeah,
I'm with Rob. If you're adding kind of like a bench piece, or depends how deep you are, what your format is, 10 team, 12 team, single flex, double flex, but I'm all over buying A-Rich. He's had what, like 4 rushing touchdowns in 4 games, or maybe even 5 or 6. It's insane.
He's great. He's great. He looks great. He just looks like a
nuts
back too. I mean, he's just.
He does look good.
I love that.
Yeah. Should have him beat our buy low. Why don't we do that?
I mean, he's a buy high. I still want to.
He is a buy high. He's on. Yeah, exactly. All
right. Rob, if you don't mind, I'll go with my sell high next because it's another player on that Bears team. It's the Bears wide receiver DJ Moore, who had a big game just like Fields. Makes sense for them to correlate in that regard, but like Chris said, it was against the Broncos, who just had 70 points dropped on them by the Dolphins. They've been awful this year, their defense. And just this kind of goes along with selling Fields, but also for DJ Moore. Fields literally had his best passing game of his career, like statistically. He set career highs in passing yards with 335, touchdowns with 4, and passer rating with 132.7. So it was quite literally like his best statistical game as a quarterback. And even on DJ Moore's big touchdown he had, where he was wide open, Fields literally almost missed him out of bounds. Like DJ Moore to make a crazy catch, toe tap, to score. So yeah, DJ Moore is a guy I'm looking to get off of while I can. He's got the talent, but I just don't have the confidence in Fields or the Bears, really, for that matter.
Yeah, I love DJ Moore too. There was like when he got traded to the Bears this offseason, there was like a tiny inkling of me who was like, maybe this could be like some kind of like Trevor Lawrence plus Calvin Ridley, like Josh Allen finally gets Stephon Diggs. There was a missing piece. There was like
Hurts AJ Brown.
Hurts AJ Brown. I was thinking that too.
Yeah. There was like a small part of me who was like, all right, maybe that could happen, but like I was mostly leaning towards no. And honestly, from a points per game standpoint, DJ Moore's been pretty decent this year, but like it's been a lot of touchdowns for him, and touchdowns have kind of saved his fantasy performance so far. And in the offense that he's in, like we know they're not good. They're a winless team. They're probably on their way to getting Caleb Williams. Their offense is not very good at moving the ball, and Justin Fields is not a good passer. So, I mean, if the touchdowns miraculous, like the only way DJ Moore stays on this pace is if he's catching a touchdown every single game, which is just not sustainable. I mean, unless it's some magical universe where he does. I agree. DJ Moore, you could probably get out on for a pretty solid price right now. He's been actually kind of cooking in fantasy if you've had him so far. So, I would also like to trade him though. I don't like what I see coming forward from the Bears offense and all that.
Yeah, we know the talent's there. Obviously, like you guys have said, just kind of I think 3 good games in a row over like 13 or 14 points, 2 touchdowns the last 2 games. So yeah, just a great selling point for sure. You can get some price solid guys there for sure for DJ Moore. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'll kick it off with my sell high. Might be slightly controversial. Kind of depends how you look at it, I guess. But I'm gonna go with Deebo Samuel, 49ers. We all know Deebo. We all love Deebo. He's fun to watch. He's very exciting. And I think he's good. Like there's no doubt in my mind I think he's good. But it's just the fact that when Brandon Ayuk is fully healthy on the field, he's the number one option, and it's not even close. Brock Purdy loves throwing the ball to Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo has gotten very minimal action when Brandon Ayuk's fully good to go. Like week 2, a lot of people will probably point out, like Brandon Ayuk was a decoy that game. Like he was playing with a shoulder injury and whatnot, so he wasn't really involved in that game plan too much. I think they almost sat him that week. They probably should have sat, but he ended up playing, or just I don't even want to call it playing. He appeared on the field, like just kind of take attention away, and Deebo obviously benefited from that. But Deebo's been very efficient. He's scoring a lot of touchdowns. I do like Deebo the player, but just at the cost he is right now, I think a lot of people are kind of expecting that Deebo 2020 Deebo season where he just went crazy. I think he finished like wide receiver 3 or maybe even wide receiver 2 that year.
I think 2.
Yeah, wide receiver 2, something like that. I don't think that's in the cards for Deebo. I mean, over the first 4 weeks, he's nowhere near wide receiver 2, and I think he's playing at almost his ceiling when Brandon Ayuk's not on the field. That is. Listen, the 49ers offense is good, but they got a lot of weapons to feed. Christian McCaffrey looks to be the absolute focal point of the running game. Deebo's not getting a lot of work in that respect. And when they're passing the ball, they're looking right at Brandon Ayuk every time. So, I like Deebo, but just at the price you could get out on him right now, I would love to be honest, because I don't think I see the production really holding up for the entirety of the season, especially Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, and that whole offense is going to stay healthy. So yeah, just it's not even like a hate the player thing. It's just I don't like the price, and I will tell you I'm certainly not buying Deebo Samuel, but if I could sell him for a nice price, I would jump on it.
Yeah, I like Deebo. I think we all like Deebo as a player. We're all Gamecocks, and he's just fun to watch, like you said. But yeah, I think once McCaffrey came into the fold, really that Deebo that we saw in 2020, like you said, like that was completely out of the question. They just have so many good weapons, and Ayuk has taken leaps forward. Really, Ayuk's looked great. I still like Deebo. I think he'll still finish as a wide receiver 2, a solid wide receiver 2, probably mid. He's got the upside to finish as like a high-end wide receiver 2. But I would get off him if you can for a fair price. I wouldn't be, actively trying to sell him for anything because he still has that upside that you like to have in players, especially your wide receiver 2 flex. You love a player that can have those big games that he can have. But yeah, if you can get a good deal for him, then I think it's fair to move him for sure.
I mean, it's more like if you're able to sell him at like high end wide receiver 2, back end wide receiver 1 price, I think you should.
Yeah, for sure. I got you.
I think that's honestly what he's consensusly probably being traded for right now. So that's why I kind of bring him as a sell high. So
Right.
I just don't think the price you're selling him for, I think you're selling him for more than what he's going to give you. That's just my.
I got you.
Yeah, I agree with you guys for sure. I love Deebo, Gamecock guy, huge fan, and obviously he can have those huge weeks, which you love to see. He can really break it off at any time, but you guys pretty much cover it all, just crowded offense, and I think we're gonna see his value potentially deflate a lot with Ayuk coming back in the fold, because it's clearly just Ayuk's the guy. So while it is as high as it is, I'm with Miles though. Like, I'm not trying to get out on Deebo for like I'm not all panicking to sell him, whatnot. But if you can get him for what his actual value is now, consensusly, like I'm cool with trading him 100%.
All right, we all good, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think we're all good.
All right, I hope you guys learned something this week. I thought we brought you some pretty interesting buys and sells. I tried to keep it a little controversial, keep people thinking on their toes and stuff. But
no, I like it.
Yeah, with all that said, thank you for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe, and let us know some buy low, sell highs that you got that you think we can respond to, because we love seeing it, and we like getting ideas from other people too. So
those comments,
hit
those comments,
please.
Yeah.
All right, we're out of here. Adios.
Peace.